I like that. 31 is tight. 31's hectic and crazy.
Say bye-bye.
Bye, Ollie. We'll see ya.
See you later.
Curious George in your yellow jumpsuit.
See you later, banana boy. All right, Mitch.
Are we ripping?
Let's try this again, huh?
Let's try it again. Let's say hi to the Marts.
Good to have you back, as always.
Just some good, down-home,
wholesome
folk.
You see that starting to make its way into the comment section?
Oh, yeah.
That's always good. That's always when you know you're doing it.
I like that. Is that Ken Zen?
That's Ken Zen. When do you think that you are doing it? There's always a time in life where you're like, I'm doing it.
I'm doing it?
Yeah.
What's it?
It's the questions for you.
I mean, I feel like I'm doing it right now. We got 3 kids. Oh my gosh. Every day is just
doing it.
I mean, you have to just be so present. The minute you're not present, your kids pick up on it like that. And their emotions go haywire. Once you start looking at your phone, once you start, showing disengagement.
Even at 5 months.
Oh yeah. They pick up on everything. Yesterday, in specific, Father's Day. Well, I guess I shouldn't say that because it's Coffee Buzz Friday.
You're 0 for 2 on that.
0 for 2. But now
you nailed that last one.
We're living in truth here.
Yeah. Well, whose truth?
The Mart's truth.
Keep going. You're doing good.
Good. Down.
You're doing it right now. You're doing it.
I'm doing it right now.
Yeah.
Yesterday I went golfing with Wrigley, and Amy was home with the 2 girls.
Okay.
And whenever you leave your wife home with, outnumbered kids, you never know what you're going to get back to. Mm-hmm. Last night when I got back, emotions were a little low, right?
On Father's Day.
A little down in the dumps on Father's Day.
Okay.
So that's when you know it was really hard, because I know that my wife was trying her hardest to make Father's Day good. Mm-hmm. And whatever, we had dinner, put the kids to bed. Her and I never really talked about that exactly, or addressed the situation, but we got the kids down, everything was all good. And then I don't pray a whole lot with my wife, but something was pulling me to go pray with my wife. So I walked downstairs, I grabbed her by the hands, and my brain kept telling me to just ask God for help. But when I tried to speak, I couldn't say it until I thanked God. So I start praying with my wife, and I can't speak because all I want to do is shout for help. Mm-hmm. Give me strength, give me wisdom, give me all these things, but I can't say it because my heart needed to thank him before I could ask him for something. And that's doing it.
Wow, way to bring it back.
Is that full circle?
You're getting better at that. Remember we talked about that?
Yeah.
About being able to bring it back? You
got to be able to bring it back.
See, because a good storyteller, you punchlined me right there. Like, you got me. And you brought me back. But I think you brought me back because I was engaged.
Yeah.
Maybe that was the wisdom that God wanted you to have, was the thanking him. And that was the prayer itself.
Right. Like, hey, don't forget to thank me. Don't forget everything that I've given you.
So when you pray, do you go like on the edge of your bed and pray and get on your knees and stuff?
Sometimes. Usually it's just kind of wherever I'm at. I mean, you and I talked about this last week, but I feel like I'm kind of praying throughout the whole day. Just through various different things, what I'm thinking about. I feel like my thoughts are almost through prayer.
Oh, I think this pillow's got to come from outside my back.
Yes, that chair is uncomfortable.
Yeah, maybe it is. Maybe you're in my head now about the uncomfortability of the chair. I would agree with you. I think I thought about that yesterday. We went and walked. We went to the arboretum. Mm-hmm. Is that what it's called? The Arb?
Yeah.
Just a massive garden.
Yeah.
and we went and walked there. We went there a couple weeks ago too. It was pretty fun, but we were walking on the boardwalk kind of along this water lily area. And I was thinking about that. I was like, do you set aside time to pray? Obviously, I think that you do. And there's many ways of doing that. But I feel like you're just always in prayer.
Yeah.
Like that's definitely praying when I'm walking silently in a garden.
Absolutely.
It just happens naturally.
I think it's part of being surrendered.
What do you mean? Just a regular surrender?
Just surrendering your life to Christ. I think that being in constant prayer is part of that. And just praying on each and every decision that you make throughout a day.
I'll get there.
Is this doing it? Should we? When do you do it?
When are you doing it?
When are you doing it? Because right now I think you're doing something.
I'm just not comfortable.
It's because that chair is not comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, right now I'm not doing it. Right now I'm not doing it. No, that's a beautiful answer. Great Father's Day. It's beautiful to hear. You ready to answer some questions?
Yeah, I want to bring up one other thing, and maybe we could save this for another day too.
No, ask.
On Saturday night, I watched The Passion of the Christ.
Wow.
Have you ever seen that?
Yeah, a long time ago. I don't even know if I've ever watched it start to finish because it's long, right?
Yeah, it's 2 hours. You got to watch it start to finish.
And it came out when we were kids.
Yep.
So I think that I don't think I had I would love to watch that now.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have that in my ideology, I guess.
Right. And the thing that sticks out from the movie to me was after he was beaten, the whole nine. I mean, the movie is gory. It's hard to watch. It's all that. And then he's getting nailed to the cross by these people who have been tormenting him all day. And he looks up to the sky and he says, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know."
I remember that part specifically.
Well, you probably remember that from the Bible.
Yeah.
Is that his last words were, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know."
And I've YouTubed that scene too.
Okay. Asking for forgiveness for the people who just tortured him. And it's just, I don't know. I can't stop thinking about it, honestly, for the past.
Why is it sticking with you?
Because the cross is everything, and the resurrection of Christ is everything. It shows just about everything that you need to know about humanity and how flawed we are and how much sin we bear. And it's just, it makes sense of the world.
Yeah, I mean, if I take it in a material sense, did you see recently I reposted the Athletic article in the New York Times about they did an anonymous Major League Baseball Q&A, and all these baseball players were quoted on how unglamorous Major League Baseball is.
Oh, yeah,
how stressful it is.
Yes.
Those sort of things. So
yeah.
Did you see where I wrote about it?
If you remind me,
Well, it doesn't really matter. I mean, we can talk about it right now based off of what you're saying. I basically took the post, which you can do on Instagram, right? Mm-hmm. You repost the thing and then you have access to kind of write your comments on it.
Right.
And I took that article, reposted it, and then I wrote specifically around the illusion of professional sports and how fans create an idea that forms around their matrix. So if an athlete is human, it disrupts the idea of the fan because it disrupts the illusion for the fan. So fans can't accept that as truth. This is a generalization. There's clearly fans who understand that it's an illusion,
right?
And they can move past this. A very simple form of this is the amount. I mean, I wouldn't even know the number. All I know is that it's a daily occurrence that for professional athletes on large scale, major league teams, again, across all sports, I specifically know heavily in baseball, obviously. But yeah, guys who fail a lot, the magnitude of death threats, for example, that people get is enormous.
Yeah.
And if the everyday fan saw that, it would destroy them. Not in their own life. If they saw that that's what happened to pro athletes, it would just wreck them emotionally. If they were in the same room with a professional athlete and they saw the hundreds of direct messages on Instagram saying some ridiculously crazy, terrifying, awful things, which is what you're talking about.
Exactly
right?
what I'm talking about. Yeah.
And then you look at the fabric of society, and what has society created based off of the illusion? What has it interwoven the fabric for the fans to be connected to sport in a capitalistic, commercialized country? Gambling. And so you find the average Joes of society, we'll call them, because the athletes get to be the athletes. So it doesn't mean you're an average Joe, even though I'm categorizing a lot of people as an average Joe here. But the average Joe gambles on a sporting event with their buddies, and they think nothing of it besides gambling because it's considered normal in society.
Right.
But then when they don't win the game, or a player blows a save or strikes out and it loses them money and they get emotional to it because it's all illusion, so is the money. Everything's illusion. And then you find people who hang out and go to work and feel compelled to write messages
to professional
to kill yourself, or your life needs to end, or you and your family should be, terrible things. I don't want to say them on my podcast.
It's horrible.
But that's probably the extreme of what I'll paint the picture of it. It gets way worse than what I'm willing to share. But the point is that someone does that and then plays a video game that night, or watches a movie, or goes to sleep.
They don't even think twice.
And they wake up and they have coffee and they go to work and they do the bit and they talk about it.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. They don't know. They just don't know because they don't understand what they're doing. And what I was writing off of that post is that society saw that post and there were hundreds of comments about shut up. You should work a 9 to 5 and see what it's like. You get paid millions of dollars. You love your job. And it's all because of their idea. General society's idea of what a pro athlete is that. So it just repeats itself. And then on the counter side, if the pro athlete wasn't getting millions of dollars, then it wouldn't make sense for the illusion. So the pro athlete needs the millions of dollars because then we have our safety blanket to say whatever we want.
Right.
Well, you signed up for this. You're getting millions of dollars.
Millions of dollars. You're super rich. That means everything should be okay.
Yeah. And then the athlete has millions of dollars and they're in a conundrum because they're going, well, I'm still like a human. I just want to have coffee and hang out and go for a walk down the street with my family. And I just became talented at a thing. And so we're in this constant illusionary flux of not knowing what we're saying. Yeah. And that's a lot of, that's that from my distant memory of that movie and that final scene. That's obviously a biblical side of the story, and that is talked about in the Bible a lot, but that's also a very natural, normal, generalized thing that exists in humanity. And it's funny. I'm back on this is good because we'll do 2 questions. So this is our own. This is you and me having a good buzz.
Yeah,
today.
This is just riffing.
Yeah, it's just the boys hanging. We're getting into a flow. We've had a few now. But I was talking to a guy this morning on a walk. I was telling you about this.
Yeah.
And I was telling him about the third eye and the chakra systems and how the chakras work their way up the nervous system. And it's always fascinating to me when you bring up chakras. And I like poking the bear with the word chakra because chakra is an Eastern way of describing the Western nervous system. But it's like speaking Spanish and English. It's like, what is blue? Azul or blue? Who's right? Neither. Who's wrong? Neither. It's just sound. Right. And so when you draw an attachment, to it's the central nervous system. It's not the root chakra. It's the root chakra. It's not the pelvic floor.
What is the chakra?
The chakras are these wheels that run around your nervous system.
Okay.
It's like an old ancient yogi. It's the way that they discovered the nervous system thousands of years ago.
Okay.
So, your nervous system is governed by your fight or flight and your rest and digest. That's really why breathing is so relevant. Because it governs both of those states. And so when I was talking to this guy this morning, I was talking about the point of your chakras. So for instance, your root chakra sits in the middle of your hips. It's your stability. So if you were to think of my brain down to my pelvis, right? And think of all the activity that happens here. I have my genitals, I have my anus, I have my taint, well, that's what I got. There's a lot of activity down there, a lot of sexual energy, hormonal energy. That's your root. That's where your roots are. And so
I just like that's where you go first.
Yeah.
You didn't say armpits. You didn't say neck.
Well, because we're starting at the
You
bottom.
didn't say the mouth.
We're starting at the bottom.
Yeah, okay.
And even if you think about it, what is a child? It's the sum of a male and female root.
Mm-hmm.
It's your roots, your seeds. Your seeds come together, they form the roots, and then that forms an organism. And so your root is very important to have stability and grounding to it. That's why the root chakra is such a grounding root. It's a grounding energy. When you're not stable in your life or you're not grounded, you have very dysfunctional root energy, which would make sense to the mass marketing of lustful pleasure. There's no stability in that.
Mm-hmm.
So you're ungrounded. You're on the loose. You're sexually dysfunctional in so many ways. Anyways, so you climb up the ladder you go into your stomach, below your belly button, you have your sacral, your soul, or your heart, your throat, and then you have your third eye. I'm not going to climb all the way up to the descriptions. And then you have your crown is above the third eye. But your third eye sits in the middle in our Western side, the prefrontal cortex, which is where it's like our executive center. It's how we make decisions, right? And the way that I was discussing this with him today, and I was packaging a lot of these things together, is it's like much of our ego and our behavior lives in our solar plexus, which is our gut. So what is our gut-mind connection? That's westernized thinking. So our westernized thinking is that we have our vagus nerve it's the longest nerve. It runs from the brain down into the gut. And whatever we put into our gut, we have emotions, and then we make decisions off of those emotions. Humans are emotional. We're not reasonable. We're not logical. We're not rational creatures. That's the difference of AI and being an actual human. So it's like for the humans to look at the falseness of media and to send death threats to athletes because they lost a gamble at the bar on 6 beers the night before. And then they got up at 8 and they went to work at 9 and they sat at the desk all day. And to them, it's our way of being. It's our unconsciousness. We just exist like that because that's how society is framed. That's how it works. But if they were to be at work all day and be getting death threats, they'd be crumbling, crying, distraught, destroyed, and then also being on public display while you're at work. Right. Imagine you want to talk about your work being on public display and think you can handle that.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Yeah. There's a very select few people in the world that can
that.
handle that level of scrutiny.
Right.
So the rest of the world just judges the scrutiny.
Mm-hmm.
So these are all natural fabrics
of
how things work. And so what I was talking about is that so much of this gut energy that we feel, it runs up into the third eye. And the point of the third eye, which I'm learning, I'm not going to cement this as a truth. I'll promote this as a thought experiment to awareness, is really your ability to see the world as it is how you acquire deeper levels of peace. And I'm not going to say that's a completion, that you perfect your peace, but I do think it's possible. Like, I don't think it's possible to be enlightened in your time on the planet. I think that you can get close. I think that you can get as close to being as perfect as Jesus as you can try. And I think attaining for that is admirable. All those things I'm not denying. I don't think you're going to get to divinity while you are in human form. I think there's the ego, and I don't think that's the point. I think because that would be free of sin. And I don't think that that's achievable. Mm-hmm. I think it's attainable to go after it, but I don't think it's achievable.
Right.
As far as our consciousness, our third eye and the executive center, and I'm relating this to the cortex, so our literal ability to think and reason, I do think is possible. So I do think that you can, from a conscious level, you can become peaceful. I think you can live in peace. And I think as the human form, that's a super high attainable goal that you could get to. And so I'm working to this concept with the third eye, meaning one of the ways that you would come into peace and exist in peace with peace is being able to see the world as it is. And that's it. There's nothing beyond that. You see fabric and form and substance for fabric and form and substance, and you see how the world operates, and it is what it is, the world. Yeah. And you can just see it. And that's where if I pull it all the way back to that movie and that scene.
Oh yeah.
That's part of it.
Yeah. I said resurrection earlier. It's the crucifixion of Jesus. But yeah, I mean, that is seeing the world as it is. That scene
exactly
is seeing the world that it is, and all of our flaws. And there was someone who was kind of making the decision if he was going to either be beaten or if he was going to be killed. And Jesus looks at him and he says, "Tell me the wrong that I've done." Because he didn't do any wrong. He did nothing wrong. He was just God in human form, preaching God to people and preaching what we need to know and how we need to live in order to get into the gates of heaven. And then people said that he was crazy, basically, and that he needed to die. So you got Jesus or this other guy, Barabbas, right? Barabbas was like this rapist.
Yeah, he was actually a problem.
He was actually a problem. And then Jesus goes up against him, right? And they go, "Who do we want to kill, Jesus or Barabbas?" And everyone voted to kill Jesus.
Mm-hmm. You were fascinated with that story. You've brought this up a few times.
This whole movie just blew my mind. Every single scene, I couldn't look away. It was like, even when I had to go take a pee, or if I had to pee, I just held it for the entire movie. Like, I literally could not stop watching this movie.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, so I would recommend anyone who hasn't seen that movie in a long time or has never seen it to watch The Passion of the Christ. And there's going to be a second one, apparently, that comes out like later this year.
With Mel?
I just found that out this year. Big Mel. Big Mel's directing it.
I wonder if making movies like that, I mean, that obviously that has to change the way that you see the world. There's you can listen to Mel Gibson on Joe Rogan. I think he talks a ton about Christianity. And
I started listening to that today.
Did you?
It didn't get too far into it.
It's long, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. It's 3 hours.
Yeah, it's interesting that
no coffee buzz.
Yeah, I've listened to a few of those. Or I haven't listened to that whole thing straight through, but I've definitely
some bits and pieces. Yeah, and I mean, imagine directing that movie. You don't know how to get it right, and you don't know, two, if you can get it right. But what you need to do is, one, get the story across, and get people feeling emotional about it. Like that. There's clips of people, because I did a deep dive today into this movie on YouTube, and there's clips from people walking out of the movie theater just in tears after watching it.
I bet.
Yeah. I don't know.
You ready for your first question?
Yeah, I'm ready to rock and roll. Let's go.
Emotional guru over there.
I'm about to cry.
That's good. Cry it out. I cried on a podcast coming out soon here. I had a recent cry on a pod.
I'm excited to listen.
I've had a few cries on podcast over the years.
Shout out to that Ben Keller episode, by the way. If people are listening and they haven't listened to that yet, that's a fantastic episode.
So before we get into this question, it's fascinating because I haven't listened to it, but I did it.
You need to listen to it. You should go back and listen to it. You'd be really happy with it.
I love that.
Yeah.
I feel like Benny and I, we kind of we didn't talk to each other for years out of there was no reason to it. It's just life.
And the way that you talk to each other, I mean, it seems like you guys just picked off where you left off.
It's great, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've gotten better at I've noticed that this is a subjective opinion, but I feel like I've gotten better at that as I've gotten older, because I've realized that actually. I used to, when I was younger, I used to have trouble if I hadn't seen somebody in a while. I'd get nervous because I'd be like, are we still going to be this? Are we still going to be that? Like and as I've gotten older, I've lost a little bit of that. I don't know why.
It's because you have more compassion now.
Yeah. And I think that you just have energy with people from forever. And I don't think you need to maintain, I don't think you need to maintain conversation with people regularly to stay in touch. Right. I think that's what I've learned as I've gotten older. Yeah. I'm fine with meeting you where you're at. Right. You don't need to text me and ask me how I'm doing. When I see you, if I see you, we'll meet.
Yeah. Like it's crazy the more time and we're in a similar like walk of faith. I feel like, we bounce a lot of ideas off each other, a lot of questions off each other. And I see so much in timing with like you and I when we conversate. Mm-hmm. Like last week you texted me, is that sauna review going to come out? Just as I finished it. Yeah. Like I'm not even kidding. I just finished it. I was exporting it as you texted me. Today, you text me, are you coming over? Right as I shut the door in my car. It's like, it's just the connection that you get with everyone through God.
Yeah, you're in alignment with people. I have a guy that I work with, and he has an off day today. And I wrote this and I deleted it. But I wrote on his off day, he should go to the zoo. And I didn't write it. I wrote, just take the day off, enjoy some reflection. I was writing together the week's systems. Yeah. He texted me today and said, hey, let's connect later tonight. I'm busy right now. I'm at the zoo. And I wanted to respond so bad, but I'm learning to just let it be.
Just let it be.
Just let it be.
Just let God do his work.
Yeah. So let's let it funnel through us right now as we answer some of these questions.
Let's let them come out of us.
Yeah. So first question, we'll just go 2 today. How to wrestle with publishing, writing, and podcast into the abyss. In quotes, it's battle resistance. Yeah. We're going to work through these ones again.
Okay. Well, you got to take this.
I got to go first.
Yeah.
Okay. So how to wrestle with publishing, writing, and podcast into the abyss. Abyss. How about that? You were literally talking to me about abyss.
Just talking about the
concept of abyss before we get on this. And then battle resistance. Okay, I will take it. And I think it's going to be in favor of our conversation earlier this morning when we were on the phone. Mm-hmm. So I like the word wrestle with publishing. I like the word wrestle. Publishing, writing, podcast. I feel like it's a similar concept, even though I know it's not, because they're actually don't. It is similar in an artistic form. It's different I think it's definitely is different writing versus podcasting, but
much different.
Yeah,
writing you have a lot more thought into it.
Yeah,
podcasting is just
flow
coming out of you.
Yeah, I think that it's a. It's independent to my experience. So this cannot be a concrete answer. I don't believe. But I said to Chelsea today that I think that I was talking to her about our kid in ways of parenting, right? We're starting to acknowledge our son becoming more aware of things and laughing at us, and personalities coming a little bit in here, and then every now and then we get a little bit of space. We talk about being parents, which I think is important. We don't like set aside time necessarily to do this, but it happens pretty often. And we talk about how do we want to raise our kid. And even that is a funny conversation, because we've used the word dogma a lot today, and the dogmatic beliefs of your parents or where you grew up from. And Chelsea and I are going to have a different vantage point, because I've been a true nomad for over half of my life. I mean, I can't tell you how many houses I've lived in, and I'm 35 years old. I don't know. I'd have to sit down. I'd have to guess. I'd have to throw a number out into the universe, and it'd be loud. Hundreds.
I mean, at one point you were in a closet. Does that count as a house?
Yeah, we'll count that as a house. My point is that it's just I'm used to moving. Yeah. I've never owned a home. I've been able to pack up and move. We can move out of this house in the morning.
If I needed, where the wind takes you.
Yeah, if I needed to move to a state this afternoon, I could pack up in the morning and be gone with all my belongings by the afternoon. And I like living like that. Like, I'm not promoting that people live like that. I like living like that.
Yeah, it's just for you.
Yeah, I'm not saying that's a good way to live. I'm not saying that's the right way to live. It's some way that I've lived. Now, other people that I know have not lived like that. They've lived in their same hometown for their whole life, and they like living like that. And I think part of the level of maturity is that I used to be confused how somebody could live like that, where as I've matured, I've understood that it's all material. It's all people's narratives. And part of my narrative is I'm obsessed with the expression of my life. I like to publish the things, that the concepts that I'm chewing on. I'm regularly chewing on concepts. And so when I share concepts, it feels like it makes things worth living. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. Ironically, I tweeted out this morning. I said, I've always pursued reading what stimulates me, writing what I'm feeling, and saying what I'm thinking. Everything outside of that is work, period. So anything I've ever done is money driven, if it's not those three things. So every job I've had, if it's not giving me those three things, I'm only doing it for money. 100%. I've acknowledged that, and I've accepted that.
Yeah.
And there have been times in my life where I'm not making any money off my art, so I got to go work. And I do the bit. I put the collared shirt on, I tell the right story in the resume, and I get my interview thing, and
clean up the beard.
Yeah, I clean up the beard, and I do the bit. And I know I'm only doing that for this time frame because I need a little bit of money here because I'm working on some projects.
Yeah.
And that was my last 2 books. I took a W-2 job for 4 years because I wanted to write 2 books. And I knew that I needed to have the amount of headspace.
And you wanted to work in the big leagues.
Yeah, there's that too, but it's not as great as it was over the work or the art.
Yeah.
And where I'm going with this conversation is that I think the word wrestle leaves you when you pursue your life as a way of art. When you pursue it, and it doesn't have to come through the form of writing and podcasts. I would imagine that's asked here because that's what I do. But I would imagine that's similar to a dancer or a entrepreneur who takes a great pride in their projects, a painter, whatever. Mine happens to be writing, podcasting, and talking. Those are my forms of storytelling. That's my form of publishing things. And so then you go, the fear, that the resistance that you have to publish your art or your form, whatever you feel like you're here on earth to do. The way that I've understood it, and I've understood this for a long time now, and it's helped me. It's helped me, it's the reason why I feel like I've been able to sustain such content distribution, is because the only reason why I'm writing in the first place is because I'm scared. And so the only reason why I podcast in the first place is because I'm scared. And so I'm only doing things that I'm feeling resistance to, because I know on the other side of that resistance, I'm free. And every time I go through that, I'm freer and I'm freer and I'm freer and I'm freer. And I've said this to you, and you and I have been making content a lot together for probably first time ever, really, in the last couple months. So we're talking more artistically like this.
Yeah.
And I have said to you, I don't know how many times, but I mean this. I do not write or publish podcast for anybody but myself. Ever.
Yeah.
I just have never felt like that. I've
Right.
never felt the need to make you like my writing.
Yeah.
I've never felt the need, because it's not up to me. So if you like the Ben Keller podcast, that's fascinating to me. I'm more intrigued as to what spoke to you, because I remember the experience, but I don't really remember what we talked about. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And so that's where I think you work through it. That's how I've worked through it. I've worked through it as it's my duty, and that resistance is my calling. And that calling has freed me up over and over and over again. And to full circle it as I complete this long thought. But I enjoyed this long thought, so thanks for the question. And then you can go. But the part that I told Chelsea is that when I raise a kid, my goal would be that he is free from bullying of himself. Because as a kid, I was bullied. And as an adult, I don't feel bullied. And I've realized as an adult that when I was bullied as a kid, it was because I was bullying to myself. And as an adult, I've become so free through solitude, and free because I love thinking about through my thinking. For whatever reason, I feel like God gave me this. And so if I get to think, I'm with God. And that's why I like being alone. And that's why I don't like hanging out with people unless we're jamming. Mm-hmm. Because if you ruin that solitude, then I'm out. And when I was bullied as a kid, I couldn't understand those differences. Yeah. I couldn't understand those scenes. I didn't have the strength to be like, this isn't for me, I'm leaving. Right. I conformed so that I wouldn't get bullied, which hurts who you actually are. And so I was saying, I think art is the point of the experience for an individual. And you need the resistance to courageously contemplate who you are. And I was saying, as a dad, that would be the greatest thing I would want for my child, is to just guide their artistic expression and never be a part of it. Let them take it. Because if you can extract yourself away from the care of criticism. And that's why I think people are afraid to publish work, because it gets critiqued and judged regardless of the scale you're at. It will get critiqued and judged. And that is the exact same form of elementary school bullying that we experience as young teenagers and adolescents. And so I think that's why we just give up. And I think that's the resistance psychologically.
That was a great answer. Maybe click repeat on that. I'll retweet that. I mean, I think that it'll hurt more to not publish your art than it does to actually publish the art. So I think when we feel resistance on like, oh, this is pretty artistic of me, like I kind of maybe went a little overboard on this one and it's a little scary, just do it, because it'll hurt more if you don't do it. I think you'll feel it more if you don't do it. And sometimes you're going to be disappointed with the outlash, because a lot of times people don't understand your art. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. And as long as you curate a circle that understands that you're an artist, you're going to be just fine. Because there are a few people that will reach out and say, this is cool. This is awesome. Happy that you're doing this. Happy to see you thriving. Or, I think that what gets in our way is what we think people will say behind closed doors. Like, oh, what are people, they're sitting at home on their couch with their wife, probably just ripping my video to shreds about me talking on a podcast
and they probably are.
And great for them.
Yeah.
That's just the unfortunate circumstance, is that, yeah, you're right. People probably are. But it's worse to be the one talking about it, in my opinion, than to be the one creating and quote unquote failing. Right? Because if that is your degree of failing, someone talking behind your back, well, then you're always going to fail. Because if you're an artist, people are going to talk about you, whether it's good or bad. That's just how it is. And that's what you want. If no one's talking about your art, then you don't have any art.
I love that.
Yeah.
And what I think is funny,
that's from God.
Yeah. I mean, it's what works through you. That's what art is.
Yeah,
that's why I think you got to do it.
Yeah.
The resistance needed is the opposition of that.
Yeah.
And I think that to wrap that into a nice little bow, it goes back to the athletic part of that article I posted in The Athletic.
Yeah.
Because that's the same thing. The person talking about your art behind your back, behind closed doors, whatever that is, it's the same thing of the person who sends the message, the DM, or writes a comment on a YouTube channel. Like it's illusion. It's
user 123456789 with no profile picture. They follow 7,000 people. They have 0 followers. It's the internet trolls, and those people shouldn't scare you.
Well, it's just that they don't know.
They don't know.
It's the same concept.
No. Yeah.
So you just keep going.
You just keep rocking.
Yeah, and it doesn't really matter. That's the other beautiful part. Because
really
even what you're
matter.
making up is made up. Okay, in the context of a team environment, so let's put your head into a team.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on how you balance being true to your authentic self while supporting the team's result, especially when your personal performance and the team's outcome don't match? Here's some examples. If you play well but the team loses, or play poorly but the team wins, how do you stay true to what you're feeling, not masking it, but still showing up for the team? So there's a lot in there, but I think it's also simple.
I think it's simple. And I can give a quick, simple answer before you may give us, a more in-depth answer.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess my advice on this is kind of an advice question, right? Seeking advice. Outwardly and outspokenly, always support and talk about the team. Unless you're maybe speaking with a therapist or someone one-on-one individually. And then while you're on your own, in your own thoughts, be with yourself and think about your needs and your thoughts. And, you can give yourself a little praise if you had a good game. But outwardly and outspokenly, always be about the team first.
Can you say the question on how your answer, like how are you thinking the question is? Can you ask it to me?
I am thinking the question on if I have a good game and the team still loses, I feel good, but the team feels bad. Mm-hmm. How do I deal with, I don't know, if it's baseball, how do I deal with the negative vibes going on in the clubhouse when I individually feel good about it?
Yeah, or it could be vice versa,
right?
Like I feel bad, the team could be killing it.
Exactly.
Yeah, so can you just ask it in simple form? That was, for whatever reason, listening to you and then reading that and then also thinking of it was a lot for me.
Why don't you just
how about you read it to me?
Yeah, let me read the question to you.
Okay. There's a lot. I was thinking through a lot.
In the context of a team environment, what are your thoughts on how you balance being true to your authentic self while supporting the team's result, especially when your personal performance and the team's outcome don't match? If you play well, but the team loses, or play poorly, but the team wins, how do you stay true to what you're feeling, not masking it, but still showing up for the team? So I guess my answer, like after reading that, my answer could be in some way, shape, or form masking it. I don't think so. I think outwardly and outspokenly, you should always be team first. I think that's just creates a really good environment for a team to thrive. And it helps when people are, it's about the team, it's not about me. Because everyone knows that when there's an individual on a team, he could be the greatest player in the entire world, but if he's selfish and only cares about himself and he's not a good leader, the team's never going to do well. So you always have to be about the team first when you're speaking, especially in a group setting. But if you're speaking to a therapist or a friend, then yes, speak about yourself and your experiences. So maybe I just repeated what I said before, but
it sounded rather repetitive.
Yeah, maybe cut that.
I didn't hate it. No, it's good. That means that you felt it.
Yeah.
Okay, so then back to the original question. What's the question? I'm still not understanding just basically how do you manage your authentic self on a team?
Yeah.
With competing ideologies.
Correct. You suck, team's good. How do you stay true to yourself?
Yeah, I think the reason why this is so lodged in my brain is I have more examples, probably professional sports, but right now this seems to be very puzzling because this is happening in college sports, and that's what I think keeps swirling around in my head, because you're finding college used to be all about the team. and your success was so dependent on your team, and everyone was all about you, and you were about them, and that was such a cool thing. And then now there's money involved, so commerce has sort of ruined the artisticness of that cohesiveness in groups. And then in pro sports, I feel like it's always been the same. Pro sports makes tons of sense. Why would you care about the team at all when there's $100 million on the line if you do well, right? And there's no incentive really for the team to matter, like
except for a couple extra $1 million if you win a title.
Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
But yeah,
depending on your contract.
Yeah. I mean, I see what you're saying, and there is usually, if you play on good teams, usually you probably get some more money, and I think that caring about yourself selfishly inevitably helps the team in pro sports. So if everyone really selfishly cares about themselves, but kind of is like cohesive and works together to a degree, and we try to win the World Series or the Super Bowl, we all get to have success. So you selfishly wanting to win the Super Bowl for your own selfish success can actually help, I think, in a short version of that discussion. But I think like if we peel into an individual and what that experience is like, it's a tough situation, because I've been there, and I think we all have. If you've been on teams, I've been on teams where I'm not in on the leadership, or I don't like the voice or the feel of the environment. And I don't want to burn a bridge, or I don't want to conform necessarily, or I don't agree with certain things. And it's tough, right? Because I know, for instance, one of the things that's heavy in sports is alcohol, right? I think of that's what comes to my head right away. And it's like whenever I've been in sports, I've not wanted to drink, player or staff. I don't want to drink, because it's so consistent in sports, right? And you're so in it, and I can turn my brain on and focus for an entire season. So it's like, to drink or be hungover for any sporting event, I just feel like I'm not. To me, when you're a professional athlete or you're playing competitive sport, the whole reason of why you're doing that is you're trying to be at perfection. You're trying to reach the highest attainable goal. When you're not at that degree, in my life, in my opinion, there's really not that, there's not a point, there's not a reason to try to do that. It's like, you don't have to try to do that. If you're trying to win the World Series with millions of dollars on the line, I think part of the expectation is to try to be perfect, and to try to be as diligent and obedient to a process as you possibly can be. And that's the point, I think. It doesn't say that's, because that could make, if I'm on a team that aligns with that, I'm probably on a really good team. If I'm on a team that doesn't align with that, how do I be my authentic self? And he used that example because we had, I've been in many scenarios in athletic programs where you could win, and the result of winning is partying, and I never wanted to be a part of that. And you get kicked out of the group by not partying. You've been a part of teams. That's how it works. So that's like an interesting example, I think, that you can use to this question. You can kind of like look at that one, and you see that. You see how that conformity happens in teams.
Makes me think about the question differently, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to give examples to it.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that what you do is sort of what you were saying. I think that the wisdom of this comes out back to what I was saying about the third eye earlier, of seeing things the way that things are. When you can see it, when you can see the culture for the way it is. For instance, my most recent team that I was on the same organization. And 1 year I knew that I was like a somebody. And the following year I knew that I was a nobody. But I was on the same team. But I knew right away the way the system was set up. On this system, I'm a somebody. On this system, I'm a nobody. And so then who do you become, and what do you do? Because this is one of my favorite Jim Carrey quotes. He says there's two ways to make it. You be somebody you're not, and then you have to play that character, or you be who you are and you're willing to get killed for it. And that's where I still believe that to be the answer with teams, because I would rather get killed for being me on any team than conform to the team. And that's just my own answer to it.
I think that was a great answer.
Yeah.
I like that. I think we answered both those questions pretty differently and pretty well.
You think so?
Yeah, I think so. Down home.
Wholesome folks.
I love the Marts.
I love the Marts too. Love you guys. Cheers. Enjoy your weekend.